with San Jose, I think they're kind of like in a year of transition. I think you're seeing a lot
management. New management, if I'm not mistaken. They brought in a new director of hockey. They brought in David Quinn from Pittsburgh. How you call it? I think Mike Greer is the current president of hockey for them. So it's a lot of change up front, up top. So to watch where this team is going to go, it's kind of going to be exciting.
Yeah, I think the problem I have with San Jose is that now they're currently 1.2 over the cap, and they are strung by this really bad Erik Karlsson contract, like 11.5 million until 2026 to 2027, and you've seen Karlsson's games start to decline. So, I mean, we could be looking at a guy that doesn't really play out that contract, but
for the number of games that he played, he was still very productive, especially for a offensive defenseman. Right, he played 50 games, he had 10 goals, 25 assists, 35 points overall. That's still better than some regular defensemen play the entire season. So, the key for them is keeping him healthy, right? And I think that will add to their offensive power. And he is one of those guys that uses his offensive abilities, like his speed, whatnot, to really cover decently defensively. So
yeah, I think he can still point produce from the point, right? I still think there's I think there's some pieces there. But, I mean, I'm just looking at this roster, and obviously this cap friendly, this isn't definite, lines. But you got, Timo Meier, you got, Thomas Hertl, and Alexander Barabanov on the first line, right? So, Meier, 77 games played, 76 points, almost a point per game. That's a really good, 35 goals, 41 assists. Hertl, 82 games played, 64 points, it's pretty good. 30 goals, 34 assists. And they have Barabanov, 70 games played, 10 goals, 29 assists for 39 points. Now, that's a solid first line, right? Like, I think that's a pretty solid first line. Where I think things will kind of get interesting, and I'm just kind of looking out. Oh, he's out for the season. Gavin LeBuck. Okay. So you have Logan Couture as your center on the second line. 77 games, 23 goals, 33 assists for 56 points. They have Luke Kunin, 82 games played, 13 goals, 9 assists for 22 points. Like, you see a massive drop here, I feel like, in production. I mean, outside of the top line, I think this team is going to struggle scoring. I don't see enough depth scoring for them to be competitive. I mean, maybe some one of their youth prospects comes forth and really kind of kills it, but I don't know. I just don't see many at least 40 point guys here on their second line to really keep them in games. Yep. So I mean, and then you have this defense core. You have Erik Karlsson, who he's got a lower body injury. Don't know when he's going to be back. But he had 35 points, 50 games, which isn't bad, but like 50 games only. I mean, because he keeps getting dinged up. And I think he's just very fragile at this point. I mean, what do you think of their, forwards and even defense core?
All right, starting off with their forwards, from their top line to their second line, there's a massive drop-off. Yeah. Somehow their third line looks better as their second line, if you're asking me. Right? They look like more of a stable group. They all kind of score around the same. They all look like they played the majority of last season, which is something you're kind of gonna have to look for with how injury prone this team is at the moment. They may want to look into some free agents that they can sign for a year while some of these guys are recovering. But there's not much out there as far as like on the defensive side, but as far as the forward side, you have a few guys that that are still out there.
Feel the thrill.
Yeah, maybe for a season, guys like Derek Stefan, solid center. He's around 32 years old now. But you know what you're going to get from him all the time. He's going to play the nitty-gritty all the time. He can be a good third-line center that can produce whatnot. Pick up a few free agents or something. But, I mean, that's just looking at the forwards. The forwards are going to struggle scoring like this. You're in a division where you have the likes of Edmonton. Like, if you have no scoring, right,
you're screwed.
You're done.
Well,
that's just honest.
And I think the problem here is that, scrolling up here, they don't have any cap, like any cap.
No.
Like it's. Let me click back here. Yeah, they're literally over the cap space by 1.2 million. So they actually have to shed cap, and I don't see anybody on this roster that's like, oh wow, like amazing. Like, I hate to say it.
Off. Right.
I mean, the only guy that I wouldn't want to trade, but if you're going to go for the full rebuild, and that's actually what I think San Jose should do. I think they should be embracing it. I would trade a guy like, Logan Couture. I mean, Hurdle's 28 years old. Like, so, I hate to say it. I'd be looking at, like, okay, we're not going to be that competitive. We have a lot of holes in our roster. We have cap issues. Let's trade off some of these heavier contracts, $8 million each, and try to open up some space for future assets. I mean, that's my opinion.
Yeah. I can't remember. So, these guys that are injured, if they all go on IR, right, obviously you have...
it's an LTIR. Yeah.
Right. If they go on LTIR, will it hit against the cap?
No. Okay. So that's how Tampa Bay circumvented the cap. So, for example...
Right, for Kucherov, right. I remember.
Yeah, because LeBlanc, it says he's out for the season. He's a 4.75 cap hit. This doesn't have LTI. So, actually, no, they would be underneath the cap if they haven't put him.
Right. And then with the guys that are injured down low, I mean... If they're looking at
day-to-day,
right,
up for season,
maybe you throw one of them into LTIR as well.
Yeah.
Because I mean, these guys are day-to-day. I mean, if they're still not cleared, and their season was over at the end of last season, regular season. So
yeah, we also don't know how updated that is, though, too.
Right.
You know what I mean?
They probably have it updated. And again, like I said before, you have new management up top for San Jose. What are they going to do? We don't know, right? It's one of those situations. I remember when Chris Drury came in for the New York Rangers, and he came in towards the end of a season, and he let everybody know. They sent out this mass email to every season ticket holder, which I was one at that time, and it pretty much said, hey, we're going to be making moves within the next couple of weeks to try to look towards our future. And they kind of gave us the heads up, like, hey, we're gonna make moves. It's not guaranteeing we're gonna be good for the next year or two or whatnot, but please stick with us while we go through this rebuild. Now, I think that I definitely agree with you on this, that San Jose should definitely be doing a rebuild, because their guys are getting towards the tail end of their careers. Quite a few of them. Some of them are still technically in their prime or whatnot, but they're not big point getters. They're not big producers. I think they need a powerhouse. They need to find like a couple of good players, not just one or two. They're gonna need like at least two on the forward side, maybe one big defensive name.
So like my thing here is that this next draft class coming up, some people have said it's going to be a little bit deeper than this past one. Get as high as you can in the draft, in my opinion. Yeah. I think that's the best bet here. I think, like, you looking at guys like Hurdle, he's 28. Like, that's not ancient by any means. Like, he probably has a good, 6 to 8 years more in his prime. Yeah. But are you going to be competitive within that time frame? Yep. And he's signed to a long-term deal. Like, you have him under contract for the next 8 years. So maybe they're just like, well, screw it. We have his rights. We'll keep him for the whole 8 years. But, I'm looking at a guy like Logan Couture, 56 points, 77 games played, pretty good, but he's 33 years old. I mean, how many more years of that production does he really have left in him? I would be looking at kind of moving his contract. I'm not a Sharks fan. I kind of can appreciate how good they can be. I'd keep guys like Timo Meyer because maybe within 5 years you can be competitive, and he's still got time in his prime. But I would trade at least one or two pieces here and just start building for the future. That's how I would look at it. And like I think their best position depth-wise on the team is probably goaltender with James Reimer and Kaapo Kakkonen. I mean, Reimer in 48 games played, 911 save percentage, 2.90 goals against, 19-17. Then Kaapo Kakkonen, 36 games played, 912 save percentage, and a 14-14 record. Like I think that's a solid tandem, right? Yep. That's not bad. Yep. And I think something like that where you got a 1A, 1B type situation's fine. Aiden Hill's out. Aiden Hill's been, he's out for the season. He's been one of those guys that people think he'll be the next big thing for a while. We'll see. It doesn't seem like he can stay healthy. But, I think if I'm here to kind of conclude this, I think San Jose should embrace the rebuild. You know what I mean? Every organization is going to be going through it. My Bruins will be going through it soon. You're better off just cutting off the dead weight and just starting anew.
Yeah. I mean, you look at their prospects. There's not really much in their prospects.
No.
I mean, you look at maybe that defenseman Jacob Megna. He looks like he might be a solid fill-in. But let's face it, he's 29 and he's still in your minor league system. He's just going to be a guy that steps in to fill in.
Big body though, 6'6".
6'6", yeah. But he hasn't been able to really do anything.
I think there's not many two guys out here that I would say. I mean, obviously this past draft, in my opinion, I don't think any of those guys. I mean, unless you completely go with rebuild, I don't see any of these guys making the roster.
Yep.
I mean, maybe some of these guys from earlier draft classes will finally break through, but if I'm them, I don't know, man. Embrace the rebuild.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, my prediction for this team is they're going to sit at the bottom of the barrel when it comes to the season. They're not making any moves up at this point, not with this roster, not with all these injuries, not with their entire setup, forwards, defense, goalies. I don't see it, but they're, like I said before, San Jose fans, San Jose is like my third team. Like, obviously you have like teams you follow. I've always liked San Jose. I've always liked their jerseys. Have always been really nice for me. But you look at them and you have to be realistic. The team as it is right now is a bottom tier team, period. But you have to be excited with bringing in Greer and bringing in David Quinn. David Quinn has been part of a few rebuilds, including the Rangers, as they got into this whole Jury thing. He was already starting the rebuild right before Jury got in there. And, some of the players that he picked out, they're still there. And I believe he got fired as soon as like Jury came in. It was like a week later they released him and his staff, and he ended up in Pittsburgh the following year, and he kind of helped rebuild what they were doing there because they were kind of a mess at that time as well. And obviously it shows that he knows what to look for, because these teams are not out of a competition. They're always competitive. They're always doing something. So it's one of those situations that you have some good leadership when it comes to your top office, and you hope that they make the right moves in order to get you out of the bottom. But right now, with this current roster and team, you're sitting last or second to last.
Okay, so you're finishing second, last, or last in this conference.
Yeah.
I wouldn't disagree, honestly, because Anaheim made some improvements. Yeah, I would definitely say San Jose is probably either second to last or last in this conference, or in this division, excuse me. Actually, probably going to be one of the worst teams in the Western Conference. That's why I think just sell one of those good pieces. Maybe have just one good line so you don't piss off Hurdle too much, or Timo Meyer, I should say. And but yeah, it's got to be miserable. Just embrace it so you can get a higher draft pick. So that's our kind of viewpoint on San Jose. Before we get on the next team, what do you Anything else to say?
No. I mean, it's going to be interesting depending on what some of these other teams are doing. It's really going to depend where they fall, but I definitely think that they're unfortunately going to be a bottom dweller in their division. They don't have the offense. Their defense is in shambles with all the injuries. Even your goaltending is sort of in shambles. You have two guys that, they're decent, but the guy who was supposed to step in is out for the season. So that's a whole nother year that you're delayed. And you're right about, like, their superstars, like Hurdle. Like, what does he want to do? Meyer. This is Meyer's last season before he becomes, I believe, an unrestricted free agent next season.
Might have to double check that.
He'll become a restricted free agent
season,
at the end of this season. So it's one of those things. It's like, what do we want to do? Are we going to try and, like, really bolster this team, not bolster it? It's going to be kind of one of those things you just got to keep an eye out for, but I don't see anything coming from this team throughout the season.
No. So, alrighty. Yeah, I don't see anything crazy. I'm just hoping they make the right moves and really kind of just... Every organization goes through it. You just got to embrace it, and nothing wrong with trying to get some. Maybe you get Bednar, right? Maybe you get like a phenomenal elite level player. Maybe you get first overall, and you can pick one of the best of his generation.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Hey, you got to look at things on the bright side.